Here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You guys doing good?
Yes.
You're on a Saturday morning. Look at you in December, not taking time off for the holidays. You want to learn how to be better entrepreneurs. So congratulations. I'm excited to be part of this 8 organization collaboration. I'm trying to shove this in my back pocket. There we go. So I'm excited to be here chatting with you guys. And that was a great introduction. So let's see how the clicker works. There we go. Okay, so I won't spend a lot of time on the introduction. Ace kind of did a good job. He mentioned that I ran and grew a company called AMI. We help companies eliminate paper and automate business processes. So we're in the workflow automation area. Grew that, sold that last year. Became really focused on the early stage venture-backed startup scene, being an angel investor, and then helping founders. Doing a number of other things, and one of the things that I'm really working on right now that I'm excited about is, some of you may know, the city of Glendale is working on opening the tech accelerator, so I'm pretty active with working on that, and that's pretty exciting. And kind of my focus is outsider founders, so those would be us, minorities, female founders, different founders that are not your prototypical kind of white male. That receives the bulk of the VC funding, social impact, so founders looking to do good in the world, make the world a better place, and then exponential tech, which could be AI, robotics, autonomous vehicles, things like that. So those are the areas I work on, and then of course B2B SaaS, because that's where I came from. That's just a little bit about me so you know who your speaker is. Now let's find out a little bit about you, and I know this is going to help my fellow speakers as well, just understanding who's in the audience. So if we look at kind of the innovation journey, the business life cycle from ideation to problem solution fit, to product market fit, to scale, and then even sometimes before ideation, you would just have kind of just learning. By a show of hands, if we can see who's here just kind of learning, don't really have a business idea yet. I'm really just here to learn about becoming an entrepreneur. Show of hands. Okay, so about like maybe 20%. And then how about the next step? I have an idea, there's something that I've been thinking about for a while, I've started working on it, I've told my family, my friends, but I'm not sure how to take it to the next level. Who's in that category? Okay, another like 20%. And then the next step was I'm an entrepreneur, I'm working on my idea, I'm in the problem solution fit, so I'm going from idea to early traction. I have customers, I have an MVP, or at least I'm working in that direction. Who's in that category? Okay? Just a few hands, maybe 5 or 10. Okay, great. And then anybody that's past that and they have an MVP, they have paying customers, and they're kind of in this product market fit, really trying to nail that product market fit so that they could raise their Series A round. Anybody in that stage? We have 1 or 2 people. Okay, and then anybody that's raised Series A? I think so, because that's probably not, this would not be the seminar you would attend. Okay, and then how about the other 50% of you that didn't raise your hands? Just shy, Saturday morning type stuff? All right, I'm just going to guess you're here just learning and you got invited because it's an awesome event, great collaboration with the 8 organizations, and you're here checking it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a lot of today on that first part, which is the ideation phase. And everything we do, we provide frameworks and kind of playbooks around. And so I know that sits well with the engineers and scientists, but even kind of the lawyers and the doctors that come from those respective organizations, right? We like proven frameworks and processes for doing things. So that's kind of what we use. This is the Lean Stack methodology, which comes from the Lean Startup, if you're familiar with that. So we're going to kind of dive into just a little bit about the framework, how to business model, create your traction roadmap, your validation plan, and then be able to go start pitching your idea, whether that's to friends and family, to investors, to customers. So it's a great time to do this, right? So 100 million startups a year. There's that's 3 startups a second, which means by the time I'm done with my presentation, I did the math on a 20-minute presentation. I think it's like 3,600 startups will start up by the time I'm done. right? Which is pretty crazy. And the reason for that is because there's equal access to tools and knowledge. So it's just super easy. Everything's online. Anything that I teach you, probably you can find it online. It's cheaper and faster to build products with things in the cloud and being able to, there's so many tools that allow you to build a product faster, and then you can launch and grow a business from anywhere. It's no longer like, we're not in the days of the semiconductor where you needed millions of dollars just to start manufacturing. You can start a mobile app or a website business pretty easily from anywhere. But why do 9 out of 10 companies or startups or products still fail? Here's where I'm going to make it a little interactive. So it's just not a one-way dialogue, because we're having a conversation together. Why is it that this stat still holds true? Any thoughts? Yeah.
They don't solve a problem that needs solving.
Ding, 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 ding. Perfect. Great job. Did you guys all hear that?
No.
He said that they don't solve a problem that needs to be solved, which is absolutely one of the key mindset shifts for today. So I love that. So the perfect segue. So when we talk about why that happens, a lot of what you'll hear online or from founders is people will say, well, we couldn't get funding, the team wasn't right, the timing wasn't good, we had a lot of competition, and all these other things. But in reality, those end up being surface level issues, and you have to dig deeper and say, well, why are these things happening? And the reason that those are happening is because people waste needless time, money, and effort building the wrong product. So why does that happen? Similar to what he said, but yeah, go ahead. And I'm going to kind of bounce a little bit to both sides so that this side feels the love as well. Hi, everybody on this side. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, product is not validated by the customers, right? Exactly. So, and the reason that happens is because of what we call the innovator's bias. A lot of people start a business based on starting off with a solution. I have this idea, I want to create a new software for doctors. Well, that's a solution, right? They're just saying, like, I want to create something it didn't talk about what the problem is. So for those of you that are sitting here and you're kind of thinking about it and you're starting the process, this might already be resonating with you and your heart might start racing a little bit. If you started that way, it's okay. But we can still just kind of back up a little bit and really get into building out what is the problem you're solving and who's the customer, and validating that they actually have that pain that you're trying to solve it for. So kind of the first big takeaway of the talk, the short talk that we're going to do, is your business model is your actual solution, not your product. So you have to look at your business model as what's of value, not necessarily your product, and how do you constantly iterate on your business model to get it to the point where it satisfies the problem that the customer has. So for this, I think it's relevant, since we're with a AESA and similar kind of crowd, to use a scientific method to teach the kind of the entrepreneurial process. So the scientific method, as we pretty much probably all know, is you start with a model, you come up with a hypothesis, and then you go run an experiment to validate or invalidate that. So the entrepreneurial method is very similar in that we start with a business model. And when I say business model, I don't mean a big business plan. Those are not relevant anymore. Nobody does business plans. It's really being able to get, in a dynamic, uncertain world, be able to have a simple one-page plan. This is the Lean Business Model Canvas. I hope many of you are familiar with it. If not, this would probably be the second thing to take note of. This is a simple one-page way to be able to get your idea down on paper or online in our app, and be able to see what your idea is and be able to start iterating from there. Now, while it has a lot of boxes, where we recommend you start when you're doing idea development is you start with the outer 4 boxes. So I don't know if this has a laser on it. But you want to start with these outer 4 most boxes. So problem, existing alternatives, customer segments, and early adopters. So we call this the leaner canvas. So this really kind of takes out the other stuff and just focuses on the most important 4. So you kind of want to start with who's the customer, how will you identify the early adopters, and the early adopters would be the desperate ones. And when I say desperate, I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that in a good way. They're desperate to have their problem solved. What is the problems that they have, like he said? What are their top 3 problems? And then how do they solve the problem today? Out of these 4 boxes, probably the most important one is actually this bottom left one, existing alternatives. And notice that it doesn't say competition, because it's not the competition that's the biggest killer of startups, it's existing alternatives. So it's not that your tool is going to provide new reporting for doctors or lawyers that they need, it's that they already do it in Excel. So it's free, it's in place, and while maybe it's a little tedious, it works, right? So you have to be able to list not just your competitors, that might be these other software products, but you have to list that, oh, well, PDF, Excel, or whatever their existing alternatives were. So I was doing a similar presentation at Tech Week, and somebody had an idea about like taking stressed out millennials and providing a meditation center. And so what they came up with for existing, how they solve the problem today, this was going to be in LA, so they said they can go to the beach, right? The beach is a great alternative. Alcohol, drugs, right? So hopefully that gets you thinking, like those are real existing alternatives for your customers. So you have to be thinking about that as you're coming up with it. So who's the customer? Who are the early adopters, and how will you identify them? What are the top 3 problems that is going to make them say, oh my God, thank God you're here. Yes, I'm ready to go. I know you don't have it yet, but I trust you. I'll give you a little bit of a deposit, go build it and bring it to me. That's how badly I need your product. And by the way, that's one of the biggest determinants of product market fit, which is what kind of gets funding, is really like how much are they clamoring for your product, and if you were to take your product away, how mad would they get, and kind of like come to your office and tell you to put your product back in. That's kind of like the strongest sign of product market fit. So if you were going to leave here today, I would say like the first thing you would start with is this leaner canvas, and say, okay, let's just take a fresh look. And by the way, notice the solution is not on here. So a lot of times what happens is the solution gets iterated and gets changed over time. Many of the companies that you know that just went public or are growing, the big startups that you're familiar with, did not start where they ended up today. It's that constant iteration. Okay, so going back to the entrepreneurial method, so we started with the business model, we identified so the second step is to identify what's riskiest. Just kind of like in Jenga, you don't want everything to fall, you have to identify what's riskiest very quickly and deal with that. We want to do the same thing here. And so for that, once you do that, then you want to test and refine the model. So this is where we use what's called the build, measure, learn loop, or the experiment loop. And you just want to start running experiments to validate or invalidate your ideas. So if you have an idea, which like I guess 25% of your stuff said you had, what I would recommend that you look at is not just sticking with that idea, with that stubbornness, and just taking that all the way, but come up with different iterations. And then as you can see in this graphic, go ahead and validate them and X them out. Your goal is to X them out and see who wins over time. When I say who, I mean which iteration of your idea. It could be a different product, it could be a different way of solving the problem, it could be a different problem to solve, it could be a different part of the market. Each of those are different business models, and you're iterating on that. So I love this graphic because it shows somebody that started with 5, immediately ruled out 2, then had this one right here go, and then he ruled that out. And then this one went one more step, and then ultimately this was the winner, right? And that's the way you want to approach it. Just the same way that Edison didn't just run one experiment to find the light bulb. It's the same thing here. You want to run multiple models and experiments until you find the winner. And that's how you're going to greatly increase your odds for success and not be one of those stats that's 9 out of 10. So, so once we do that, then kind of the next phase, which is the problem solution fit phase, which you know, a good number of you were in, kind of goes through its own framework of customer discovery, crafting your UVP. We don't have enough time to go into this in detail, but what I want to do is take a sip of water, and because I've been talking pretty fast, and thank you, and go through and look at a case study here. So, everybody familiar with what an MVP is?
No.
Cool. No? Okay, so an MVP is the smallest solution that delivers customer value. So you don't want to develop your whole product. You want to develop the smallest, the baby thing that you could give to a customer that solves their problem and that they can get value from. And ideally, you're capturing value in return, which means that they're paying you for it. So what I want to look at here with the MVP is there's three kinds of MVP, and this is something that not a lot of people know about. And we're going to look at examples. A lot of people might have read the Lean Startup, and the Lean Startup made the mistake of saying, go build an MVP, put it in the hands of your customers, and then just learn. And now 10 years later, we've learned that that's not the best. It's better to do some customer development, talk to the customer, find out what they need, and then go build your first release 1.0. But there's also the Concierge MVP and the Wizard of Oz MVP, which just at a high level, the Concierge is taking the things that you expect to have automated and the software is doing, and just do it as a service. Do it as a high-touch consulting service to start. Many startups were started this way, including Groupon and Airbnb and others, where the founders did the work behind the scenes. And then Wizard of Oz is similar but a little different. Wizard of Oz is a little bit more like fake it until you make it, where and actually I have an example of this, so I still haven't taken a drink of water, but that's because I'm trying to power through. But I'll tell you now as I give you a question. So if this was 13 years ago, and you were Elon or you were just yourself, and you had this great idea that, you know what, I believe in electric vehicles, and I feel like we need to get off of fuel and onto electric vehicles, but clearly the market's not there. How would you go about creating an MVP to validate your idea? How would you go about doing that? Any ideas? I know that was a hard one. So, first of all, you have to say, what's the riskiest assumption? Well, there's a number of risky assumptions. Can we make the battery, right, the electric battery? Will customers buy it? Will they use it? At that time, remember, there was like hybrids, like Bill Gates had a hybrid. It was kind of like a joke, right? Like it wasn't like taken seriously at that time. So what they did was they started with an MVP. And why did they choose the Roadster? Why did they choose the Lotus Spirit versus another car model? Any thoughts?
Cheap to make?
What?
Cheaper to make than a larger model?
Cheaper? Well, it's actually a pretty expensive car. It's small, but it's a high-end, expensive car. The customer had a lot of discretionary income, exactly. So they went after, remember I said find your early adopters, the ones that would just want it because it's cool, they're desperate, they want to get it. So they went with that, and actually, in 2006, they published their master plan, if you guys remember this. Elon, I think on his personal blog, published, build sports car, use that money to build an affordable car, use that money to build an even more affordable car, while doing above, also provide zero emissions electric power generation, and don't tell anyone. And this was literally on his website. I love Elon. My second son's middle name is Elon. I love how he systematically disrupted industry after industry. But he literally did this, and then they went out and they executed on that. So they built a low volume, high price to validate. So they took this out, the engine out, they put their electric engine. They sold 500 cars per year, enough to get it out there and validate that customers are buying this, it's working, it's not breaking down, the battery works, the charging works. Then they went ahead and came out with their mid-volume, less high-priced Model S. I'm a proud owner of Model S. I love it. I hadn't loved the car since I was young, like in my teens when we would get cars and fix them up. And I went through a period of like a car is a car. And now with my Model S, I absolutely love driving it. And so they came out with the mid-volume, less high-priced version. And then, as you guys all know, now they have the high-volume, affordable price. And most recently, they announced the Cybertruck, which is also the high-volume, affordable price truck model, right? And they already got, what's the number up to, like 250,000 pre-orders, which was like $6 billion in claimed revenue or future revenue. Okay, so I don't know how we're doing on time, 2 minutes, so we're pretty good. So key takeaways, hopefully this was valuable. It's hard to cram things down. Generally this full thing we do over 90 days or over a 3-day workshop, but some key takeaways just for what I wanted to cover in your idea development is, as he said in the beginning, fall in love with the problem, not your solution. So always be falling in love with the problem. Fall in love with the customer's problem and how you're going to solve it. Your business model is your product, not your solution. Figure out what your riskiest assumptions are and then be a fun scientist and come up with experiments you could run to validate those assumptions, like how Elon did on a big scale, but you could do on a small scale. And then start with the concierge or Wizard of Oz, or even a very basic MVP. I see a lot of founders overbuilding. The classic thing that I see when people come to us is they've spent 18 months, they have developers in Armenia or India or the Philippines, they've spent over $100,000 and they haven't even talked to a single customer, right? So you don't want to be that. So go ahead and talk to customers, get something in front of them as quickly and as easily as possible, and take it from there. And so I'm happy to help any of you guys for ACE and this multi-faceted collaboration. We're offering essentially that first program for free, so feel free to take down this if you want to do a self-study. It's just bit.ly/value scaler. Happy to get on a call with any of you guys if you want, my coaching or advice. And we are looking to launch a pre-accelerator in Glendale sometime early next year. You can check that out if you'd like. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Can you go back to that slide, please?
Sure. This one?
Yeah.
Do we have time for questions, Ace?
Next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were saying that we have to communicate with customers, this is why we have like large scale production.
Yes.
But isn't it risky, because if you have, for example, interesting, so you mentioned that we need to communicate with customers before we do a lot of work.
Right.
Isn't it risky because if you have a very good solution for, I don't know, something people are interested in, for example, I don't know, autonomous vehicles, so you have a good solution for LiDAR, and then you go to all these, companies, you say, oh, look, I have solution, they will just take it away from you. Is there a risk?
Yeah.
Isn't it better like to have a base and then only like start talking?
Yeah. It's a good question. So the whole kind of secrecy versus transparency. In the startup world, the common belief is it's all about transparency, and because it's not the idea that wins, it's execution that wins. But now, if you have an idea, and if you go to let's say if you're going to meet with the LiDAR manager at Tesla, and they could easily just take your idea and do it and not need you, then you might want to take some legal bounds, like have an NDA, and there's a way to go about that some of my esteemed fellow speakers that are on the legal side can talk about. But in general, in startups, I mean, you're sending your pitch deck to hundreds of investors, and hundreds of people are getting your pitch deck that could just see that and say, wow, that's amazing, I'm going to go do it. Nobody does, because that's your idea, you're passionate about it. With a customer or a strategic partner, there's always bad actors in any game. So it all depends. I think in something super specific, you may want to get a little bit further, but that doesn't mean you still can't do call and discovery with the customer. So you can still meet with that Tesla or wherever LiDAR person and say, what would it look like if I was able to create a LiDAR that was 10 times better, faster, more reliable than yours? Would you be interested in that? How much would you pay for that? Right? And then say thank you very much without telling them or showing them anything. So you absolutely still want to talk to customers as early and as often as possible. And this is probably the biggest thing, especially I was in Armenia last month and very engineering and science heavy, deep tech, AI heavy, and it's all about building and not talking to customers and really, I'm not saying all of Armenia, but really we have to get out of that mindset and we have to want to talk to the customer first. Because if you talk to a customer and you get 10 customers that tell you they want this, then guess what? Your raising money becomes easier. You're easily going to be able to raise from investors. Hiring a team becomes easier. You have everything becomes easier. But a lot of times, people have it backwards. They think they need to go behind the behind the curtain, develop the product, and then come show it to the world. And in reality, you don't. I can tell him an idea I have, and he could say, yeah, I'm interested. I could even get his credit card for $99 a month for some SaaS app, and then I can talk to 10 of him, get that, and then go back knowing that I've validated. It also gives you more confidence. So it basically wins all around if you do it the right way.
Do you have time for something? Oh. No, I'm just gonna add to it.
Yeah.
People talk, they don't do. So don't afraid to just go out there and try through your hypothesis to validate.
Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Do we have time for one?
Yeah, one more.
We do? All right. Maybe this is something that can apply to a lot of people. I completely agree with you to reach out to the customers and stuff, definitely, before anything. But sometimes they're too busy dealing with their own crap, right? They have a crappy system that works, and they don't have the time, they seriously don't have the time to talk to you. How do you go through that barrier? And that applies to anything, right? To any type
Yeah,
of discovery work that you're doing.
Yeah, so the best way to go in is just to go in with like a research approach, right? So it's not a hard pitch. It's more of, hey, I'm a fellow enthusiast in your space. I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm early in doing research, and I'd love to talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes. And so sometimes that helps because you're not coming in trying to sell something. And then other times, if you have to get to the point where you just throw your value prop out there. So part of the middle slide in the lean canvas was your unique value proposition. So you throw your unique value prop, and if they don't bite, then maybe it's just not that. Maybe it's just not that interesting to them. You have to go back and reconsider your model. So if you take 10 of your early adopter perfect persona and you get 10 LinkedIn messages and nobody responds, then maybe it's not solving a problem that they really care about that much. Question over here?
You have time?
As long as it's
Quick
quick.
one.
Yeah.
When would you bring in an investor? When would you bring in an investor?
I turned it off.
I guess you turn it off. Okay, so the question is, when would you bring in an investor? So, this one might require offline, but give me a one-sentence follow-up to that.
Let's say you have the idea, you've developed the initial parts of it, but you need funding
Right.
to go to the next level. It's not an idea anymore, it's actually in progress, or in work in progress. But you realize that you need certain funding. When would you bring that investor?
I mean, it sounds like you answered your own question, right? Unless I'm missing something. But if you have an idea and you need the funding to take it to the next level, then you start talking to investors. But what a lot of investors like me are going to say is, what's your traction? How many customers do you have? You don't have customers? Okay. Well, how many prospective customers have you had a discovery meeting with? How many times have you gone to the mall or to the park or to the beach or to wherever your customers congregate and just done an interview with a clipboard and just talked to people? And if you haven't done any of that, then there's going to be a lot of investors that are going to back out because it's too early in just having an idea. More and more, there's more money than ever, and fundraising is very easy these days. And when I say very easy, I mean you do the right things, the money's there. We were in the best times of venture capital. But the expectation from entrepreneurs has gone up dramatically, where at every stage you're expected to do more than you were 10 years ago. So you're expected to have a somewhat of a team. You're expected to have some customers or at least some validations. Right? I hope I answered your question. So go talk to them as soon as possible, but don't be surprised if they're not ready to talk to you yet, and they might send you back to go try to get more traction.
Thank you. Thank you.